Hello, everybody, and welcome to our June 19th Pride Mic. It's our third Pride Mic of this series. We've got one each Friday of this month, finishing next Friday. Super glad to be with you all today and to get to hear some amazing voices and get to be in community. At the moment, it feels really important to be able to do that. And welcome to all of the folks in the room and to all of those watching on the live stream. If you are on the live stream and you decide you want a poem at the end, you're welcome to jump into the room. To start today off, there's a couple things that I want to talk about. The first is as we're thinking about history, and we have historian Lillian Faderman with us, to acknowledge, first of all, that today is Juneteenth, which is the day that Union soldiers delivered emancipation orders in Texas and is the oldest known celebration of the end of slavery in the United States. And to also acknowledge the history in the making of this last week with the Supreme Court rulings on civil rights law, extending protections, using the word sex to apply to LGBTQ community, as well as preserving DACA. I know that a lot of folks are here tonight really to see Lillian Faderman, and I'm really excited for this conversation. I want to explain a little bit of the format of the whole evening before we go in. We're going to have a short conversation to start things off. At the end of that, there will be a Q&A, so feel free to come into the Zoom and ask questions in chat, or to use the raised hand function. After the Q&A, or during the Q&A, I should say, our Pride poets will be writing poems based on that conversation and based on the things that Lillian shares. So I think of it kind of like simultaneous translation. They'll be translating the prose into poetry, and I'm so excited to hear what they come up with. After the Q&A, they'll share some of that work, followed by our open readers, and we've got some really beautiful stories that folks are here to share tonight for that. Finishing with our featured reader, who is Jaden Fields this week. And after that, everybody will be invited into breakout rooms to have custom poems written for them. So thank you for being here tonight. Thanks to Lillian for joining us. Thank you to the Pride Poets for doing this ridiculous feat. And thanks, of course, to the City of West Hollywood, One City, One Pride, for supporting this project, and to Get Lit, Words Ignite for letting us use their Zoom. So with all of those things said, I'd love to welcome Lillian Faderman to the spotlighted video position. Hi, Lillian.
Hi. Thank you for inviting me. This is exciting.
Thank you for being here this evening. I want to... Sorry, say that one more time.
I said, this is exciting. Can you hear me okay, Brian? Am I holding the computer okay so you could hear me all right?
I've got you okay, yeah. There's the occasional robotic noise, but that's just the world that we're living in. So I wanted to start off, Lillian. I know that you have a memoir that is being reissued, and I wanted to start off asking a little bit about that and kind of how that's progressed, what the reissuing means, and getting into kind of this duality between working as a historian and then working as someone who's part of that history. So to start off, can you just tell us a little bit about the memoir?
So the memoir was published in 2003. And I take it up to 1979 with the death of my mother. So it's a lot about my relationship with her, but it's also very much about my finding who I am as a lesbian. I begin actually when I'm 6 months old and stories my mother told me, but a lot of the focus is on this tremendous adolescent crush that I had as I think I was about 12 at the time, on this beautiful woman. And then what actually happened, that I discovered what that meant, is I had a gay boyfriend. I was 16, and he was just a few years older than I was, but still a minor. And he had a phony ID, and he made a phony ID for me. And he said, I'm going to take you to some gay bars. And he took me to a couple of places where the guys hung out. And then he said, and you know, there are places like this for girls too. And I said, oh, really? And I walked in, and that was it. It was an epiphany. I knew that suddenly everything made sense. The huge crush that I had had on a woman when I was 12 and 13 and 14, I suddenly understood it. So the memoir is a lot about that, and it's about, this was Los Angeles in the 1950s, which was a very noir town, at least as far as I could see. So it was about my experiences in the gay girls' bars in the 1950s, and then about going to school and deciding I could get a PhD, and it ends with my partner, who's still my partner, Phyllis, who's now my spouse, actually, saying to me in 1979, because I was so excited about the way lesbian stuff was suddenly spoken about as it wasn't when I came out. And I had written a few articles, and she said, well, why don't you write a book? And I said, but I have never written a history book. And I thought, why don't I write a book? So I wrote Surpassing the Love of Men as a result of it. And it ends shortly after that.
So you're saying that the impetus to do that was your partner telling you, you should be the one to do this.
Well, you know, that was the impetus for me to do it, I suppose. But it was also what was going on in the 1970s. So I came out, as I said, in the 1950s, and I was a literary kid, so I really wanted desperately to know what this meant. And I went to the library, and I found books by like Kraft Ebing and Havelock Ellis and people who pathologized us, and that was very upsetting for a 16-year-old kid. And then I discovered the pulp novels in drugstores. They actually cost 25 cents in those days. And it was wonderful to read those novels until the end. And then it was very upsetting, because invariably at the end, the main character would commit suicide, or she would drown in a well of loneliness, or it would be something awful. Never a happy lesbian at the end, or she would be converted to heterosexuality, something like that. And,
Right.
and suddenly in the 1970s, lesbians were publishing newspapers, and they were opening bookstores, and it became a subject that you could talk about. And so that was my other huge inspiration, not just Phyllis saying, you could write a book about this, but also that I knew that there was finally a dialogue going on, and we didn't have to read Kraft Ebing or Havelock Ellis. We could tell the stories ourselves. And so I think my initial work came out of that. That was the first impetus of my realizing that I could join this dialogue, and nobody had written a real lesbian history before, and that's what I wanted to do. But my work, you know, that was the start, and it's evolved in various ways, which I'm happy to talk about. But that
Yeah,
was
I think
an important start for me.
I think that's kind of the next question that I would have. It's interesting to think about the ways that the 70s kind of paved the way to even begin that dialogue. But I'm curious, because now you've been writing about this since the 80s and seeing that dialogue continue to radically evolve. And I'm wondering, as a writer and as a storyteller, albeit a storyteller of history, how that shift in national dialogue has shifted the way that you talk about history.
Yes. So, you know, my initial feeling was I wanted to write books that I would have given anything for as a teenager to be able to read. And so I think that's what Surpassing the Love of Men was about. That's what Scotch Verdict and Odd Girls and Twilight Lovers was about. It's definitely what To Believe in Women was about. These were women that I thought that the world needed to know about, and their stories had been so covered over. And I just, it was really a labor of love to get those stories out. And then I decided I would look at my story, and that was why my memoir was written and why that came out the first time in 2003. I wanted to really dwell on that and figure out how I became the person I became. But then I decided that I wanted to also expand. I wanted to talk to all of our community. And the first book in which I did that came out in 2006. It was called Gay LA, and I did it with a wonderful male gay man scholar who has left us, alas. That was Stuart Timmons. And doing that work made me realize I also wanted to find other stories about the rest of our community. And so in the Gay Revolution, I certainly talk a lot about lesbian history since the 1950s, but I also talk about gay male history and transgender history and queer people and how that evolved. And so I wrote that for a larger segment of the community. And then I was actually asked by Yale University Press to write about Harvey Milk. And I knew that this was for a series that they called Jewish Lives, and they wanted me to focus on his being Jewish, but also on his being gay, which I focused on a lot in the book. But I knew that a lot of straight people would be reading that book, and that became a goal too. I wanted straight people to know our story. And so I guess
As
that's the way my writing has evolved.
as a poet, I'm really curious because you're telling stories to different audiences, and I wonder if you see a change in your language when you're speaking to these different audiences.
You know what I've learned, and it's not necessarily that I'm speaking to different audiences, but my style has really changed. What I really want to do in my writing, and I think I've started, I did a little bit of that in Odd Girls and Twilight Lovers, but I did so much more of it in a book like The Gay Revolution. I want to tell stories. That's the way I want to recreate history, by telling stories, by looking at people, or if I look at events, I want to look at them from the perspective of various people. And I think that my writing has really evolved that way. And of course, with Harvey Milk, I told the story of just one person, but not only. So he had a relationship with Craig Rodwell, for instance. So I tell Craig Rodwell stories. So that's the big goal of what I do, and that's what I think that's what I've been doing for at least a decade and a half now, trying to tell stories as I create this history.
So this is the easiest tee up for a follow-up question ever, because one of the questions I wanted to ask you, Lillian, and then I want to open things up for anyone who's in the room to ask your questions. So if you want to think about those, is that the theme for this year's One City, One Pride is the idea of off the record. And I'm wondering if there's a story that spoke to you or a story that you found that you would want to share with us right now.
Yeah, there is. I actually wrote a little bit about her in I wrote about her in my memoir, and I think I mentioned her at least in Odd Girls and Twilight Lovers. I did an interview with her for the memoir. Her name was Frankie Hucklenbroik. She died in 2005. She was one of my first lovers in the 1950s. She was just a couple of years older than I was. She was very butch. And so I must have been 17 and she was 19, and she was unemployed, looking for a job, had absolutely no luck. And she dressed like a young butch person, always in pants and a boy's shirt. And I was 17 years old, and this was the 1950s. And I said, Frankie, maybe it's the way you dress. Why don't you see if you could wear a skirt and maybe wear high heels? And poor Frankie decided she would do that. She was she must have been about maybe 5'9", short hair, very handsome. And she borrowed a tailored jacket from somebody, borrowed a skirt from someone else, and high heels that would fit her. I was still in high school. I was in Los Angeles. I went to Hollywood High, and it was just blocks away from Hollywood Boulevard, Hollywood and Highland. And there was a coffee shop there called Coffee Dan's, where all the gay kids would hang out, mostly gay boys. Frankie and I might have been the only lesbians that hung out there. And I was in the theater group at Hollywood High. So one day, when Frankie went looking for a job dressed as I've described, I had a rehearsal, and the idea was that I would meet her at Coffee Dan's after the rehearsal. So one of our mutual friends, a gay boy, just comes running to Hollywood High. He was also a student there, so he knew we were rehearsing, and he said, you have to come with me. There's been trouble at Coffee Dan's. Frankie's been arrested. And we run up to Coffee Dan's, and she's being led out of the restroom by a police matron, and there are a couple of cops standing around. And she was arrested because they thought that, sorry.
Take your time.
Because she thought that she was a boy masquerading as a girl. And so the cops, one called a police matron to make her go into the bathroom, and Frankie had to take off her shirt and just disrobe and prove that she was a biological female. And anyway, I've been thinking a lot about that. Well, I think about it a lot, but I've been thinking about it a lot recently, because I think so many of the stories that we hear where the cops are still bad to trans women, we don't hear about trans men. Not that Frankie identified as a trans man. It wasn't a possibility then. She might have had it been a possibility, but in those days, Frankie just called herself a butch, and it was just a very sad story. I'm sorry for the emotionalism, but anyway, that's the story.
Thank you for sharing that. There's a.
I should mention too that Frankie wrote a wonderful novel that just didn't get a lot of play. It was an autobiographical novel, and I appear as Jillian. She calls herself in that novel Nikki, and in my memoir, I call her Nikki, and so our books kind of talk to each other. But the novel was published in, I think, about 1999 by Firebrand Press, and she talks about that incident in the novel. But unfortunately, and the novel is so beautifully written, but it kind of fell between the cracks, and I think it's out of print and deserves to be reissued, and maybe it will be by some lesbian press now, but anyway.
It's interesting to think about. We have a couple of questions. The first one, and feel free to either use the raise hand function in chat, and I can call you to unmute yourself to ask, or to put the question in chat. This is just a procedural one, but what's the name of Frankie's book?
It's called A Crystal Diary, was published by Firebrand Books. which was a lesbian press no longer in business. And I think it was about 1998 or 1999, somewhere along there. It's a wonderful, wonderful autobiographical novel. I recommend it highly, and I'm pretty sure you can get it on Amazon if you can't get it through an independent bookstore.
Right. And I so appreciate you bringing in the ways that particularly policing around gender and bathrooms is nothing new. There's a quote that I was thinking about before this conversation. It's the Twain quote: "History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes." And I'm curious in this moment what rhymes you're seeing.
But I'm curious in this moment, and I didn't hear the last part of your question.
I'm curious in this moment what rhymes you're seeing.
What rhymes I'm seeing? Well, there's still the issue of particularly trans women of color being arrested, and so that is certainly a rhyme with Frankie's story. I think that that's certainly the most profound rhyme that trans people, and I want to emphasize that Frankie didn't have the choice of being trans, but someone who was a very butch lesbian, even in those days, experienced that the sort of thing that particularly trans women of color are experiencing today.
Thank you for that. We'll have just a couple more minutes if folks want to ask questions. I have one because we're in a room of queer writers and thinking as well about Frankie's story and the idea of even something that feels as permanent as a book, can go out of print. What advice would you have for the queer writers who are in the room?
What advice would I have for them in terms of publishing, you're saying? Or you dropped your voice at the very last part, so I didn't hear the last part of the question.
Sorry about that. So thinking about the way that you've managed to carve out such an incredible space and give voice to so many folks, and I think we've got a lot of folks in this room who certainly for myself see that as an inspiration and see that as something that they want to do. So I'm curious if you have any pointers.
I have a very dear poet friend that I'm sure some of the poets here know, Mary Miriam, who has done wonderful work. But we have this conversation often about her difficulty in getting published by the mainstream press, and I know how hard that could be. And I was so incredibly lucky when I was working on Surpassing the Love of Men. I met a young woman, we were both young in those days, who was an unemployed PhD. And I was in a writer's group with her. And so she read what I'd written, and she said she was going to New York. This was in San Diego. She said she was going to New York, and she had actually managed to get appointments with some publishers. And did I want her to take my manuscript? So I thought, sure, what was there to lose? And it's Sandy Dykstra, who some of you may know. She's become a major agent, and I knew she just had the right personality, and she pushed my book, and she immediately got me 2 offers. And since then, it's been easy for me. But I think the point is you have to get your foot in the door. And unless you get your foot in the door, then the mainstream publishers don't seem to want to listen. But with my buddy Mary Miriam, she still does fabulous things. She has her own publishing house that I'm sure some of you know, and she publishes a lot online. And what we talk about is how important it is to keep going, whether or not you're going to have a publisher. And I think that it's in good part for yourself that you have to write, because you'd be so miserable if you didn't do it. And I know that's true for her. And if you have a publisher, that's kind of, it's frosting on the cake, to use a cliche, excuse me, poets, But if you don't have a publisher, you still have to write. Because if you're really a writer, that's what you do. Writers write. And so, there have been times in my life when I've thought, well, I've written enough, I've said enough. And there's been a hiatus, and I've been miserable because I miss it, because I've only been writing on the computer since I guess, late 1990s. But I miss sitting down now with the computer, and just for me, it's wow, it's a high. And I'm sure that writers feel that way. What could feel better than just doing it? Whether you're lucky enough to get published, or whether you're doing it for you and your friends and whoever will listen to you.
One thing that I love about your story is the power of community that I see in it. That it was your friend going to New York who said, "I'll take your work in." So it's have good friends.
Yeah. Yeah, and she's just done such incredible things. She is the one who discovered Amy Tan. I'm sure you all know the Joy Luck Club, and before that, Amy Tan had been writing these wonderful short stories that she published in pretty good journals. But Sandy read one of her stories and thought, wow, there's a book here. And the book turned into the Joy Luck Club. So yeah, Sandy has been fabulous for that kind of thing. Just finding writers, even before she was an agent, finding writers who hadn't had big publishers and helping them get published.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Lillian. Unless we've got more questions, I would love to invite the Pride Poets to share what this has sparked for you, or what poetic responses you have, and then we'll start with our readers. But would love to see if any of the Pride Poets go ahead and just unmute and begin. And if two people start at the same time, we'll have a battle to the death.
I'll go.
Thank you so much, Lillian, and I'm very excited to hear the poems that we have written in response.
I'm excited too.
All right. Go ahead, Natalie.
Huge crush, fake photo ID, a picture of someone else helped reveal the real me. The 1950s, those so-called happy days, all the queer books you could find end in death or a change in ways. To write the books that we needed to read. We were the authors we were waiting for. The magic words were in our own heads. The child we were, the dreams that we had, they set our course for good or for bad. Perhaps that's why we're here, to fill the blanks we see missing, to tell them what's important is who we are and not who we're kissing.
Oh, thank you, Natalie. Wow. Thank you so much.
I can jump in. It was dark in this town. Even the books, birthed in private, brimmed with drownings, suicides. To be the odd girl was a white shirt torn open, a well deeper than imagination. We gathered in the one place we could make sense of things, to write it ourselves, to deliver our own scotch-soaked verdict, to believe in women, to surpass the most naked promise, to believe, to live, to work, to love.
Wow, I love it. Thank you. Could I get copies of these poems, Brian? Will that be possible?
Absolutely. We'll send all of these poems to you, and if folks are shy about reading their poems but still want to deliver them to Lillian, we'll do a whole shebang.
Oh, great. Thank you.
I got one. Preteen powerful feelings for beautiful women sent me to the institution of truth, but the library held only pages that called my world disease and wrong ideal. The drugstore gave me pulp with love I imagined, but ends in tragedy each time. Later, lesbians entered the zeitgeist, owned presses, and told their tales. New definitions bloomed. My urge to tell stories, my own and others too, erupted into pages and decades overfull of love that's gay and lesbian, trans and non-binary too.
Thank you.
Okay, I will read mine. It's more of a fan letter, so. This face pulses, beautiful woman, admired all these years, devoured her ridden courage. Stories sustained me, naked in the promised land. LA noir gay girls, bars, history making, out in 50s, wrote her story, read heartbreaking pulp novels, never a happy lesbian at end. 70s changed, conversations happened, Phyllis happened, love happened, books happened. Books wished she'd held, she wrote them. Stories I held, clung to belief I too might write my story someday. Lillian, we are listening, we are greedy for your words, your journeys, your tears. Thank you. Thank you. Jillian and Nikki at Crystal Diary in our hearts kept us alive. History doesn't repeat itself, often rhymes. Choices not held, danger still pulsing, say their names. Importance of keeping going, right because you must. Words won't stop, yours kept us alive. Say it once more, you wrote the books we needed to read.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I can go. This is called Historian. Bind the books you owe yourself. Dance between the open graves. Plunder collapsing, rotten libraries. Build new ones with your bare hands out of bright, strong cedar. Tell stories around low fires. Make the invisible visible. Show them who you are. Dress the way you want to dress. You're past a fine suit strutting down the boulevard. Tell stories that make your voice crack. Hold your head up high, ancient minerals line your tears. Crystal diaries in liquid dancing. Probe old wounds with warm, clean phrases. Trace the things they took from you. Tell stories until you feel whole.
Beautiful. Thank you. Wow.
Thank
They're
you.
breathtaking,
again
all
today.
of them, really. Wow.
And we will put those all together and send them to you, Lillian. Thank you so much for joining us. And
So appreciate that.
you are so welcome to stay and hear the other voices, and if you have to run, of course, we completely
I
understand.
think that Phyllis is expecting me to help with dinner, so I'm going to run. I really loved this, and to all of you, thank you so much. This was, wow, just a fabulous experience for me, so thank you again.
All our best to you. Thank you. Have a good dinner.
Bye.
Oh, hooray. Whew, big exhales after that. And just a quick the plug of Pride Poets is that if you'd like one of these poets to do that for you afterward, that's what they're here for. Right now we had a photographer who's going to share some work, but I'm not seeing her in the feed at the moment. So I think we'll continue moving on. Gabriel, are you ready to read now, my friend? Fantastic. So we're going to have Gabriel and Jure, you're on deck.
Okay, so I have 3 poems. Give me 1 second, because I am technologically limited. Okay, so the first poem I have is called Heavenly Bodies. Can you hear me okay? Sweet. All right. Heavenly Bodies. Speckled light shimmers on your skin in the morning when the sun breaks, wiggles free and rises above the rooftops, burning through tree branches and the dusty glass of your bedroom window. You sleep, eyes closed, and I think. When you were in the womb, before your eyes could ever perceive light, you felt only warmth and hunger and saw nothing. The light called you, summoned you out with a promise to cradle you in a bright new world. You followed it, came out screaming, blind and naked, trusting that the light would not lead you astray, journeying from weightlessness to a constant battle against gravity. Time played its unstoppable dance around you, and you aged, constantly reaching, growing up, your form clawing toward heavenly bodies, trying with all your genetic makeup to get as close as you can to the sky, a flower opening to the sun, absorbing light in every photon. The light led you, woke you up every morning and hid to let you sleep at night, brought you wheat in the summer and carrots in the winter, allowed mankind to harbor it in glass bulbs and fireplaces, letting humans play God for small glimpses of time. Now, I hold the shadow of you, hugging sheets to you, warming you, on the side the light's not touching, pulling you closer to me, feeling time around us falling away like ash mountains and high winds, the remnants of forgotten Amazons crying silently into your chest. Pondering, in the future, gravity will break you down like it does to all, pull you toward the soil, toward the cold, until one day the light will shine from a new horizon, whispering again to you, leading you in, to a place beyond the flesh and bone of this dimension, through the tunnel of spirits into a whole new world. So that's one. Nice. Okay, this is the second one. It's called The Void. She spared her air for me. She closed the hatch, cut her oxygen tube line into mine, and we breathed as one. Outside the fogging window, we could see debris floating, our engine in pieces, and the Earth, the spaceship we were all born on, floating helplessly in the distance. On the intercom, the distant sound of ground control debating options, a deteriorating echo vibrating on a thin supply of oxygen, looking for answers, pleading for logic, but we knew it was over. Before they had the balls to say it out loud, we knew it. Defeat wasn't in their job description, and because our pulses still beat, they would still look for a solution. They would math, calculate till their eyes crossed, and the coffee stains leaked through their dress shirts, through their undershirts, and began staining their skin. Draw arcs on paper with pencil, write formulas, erase and rewrite, erase and rewrite, erase. They had no choice. Every math problem had a solution, and it was in their blood to seek one, but we already knew. The numbers didn't add up. Our own ode to the Space Oddity. 2 humans, 1 ship, O2 enough in the cockpit for 1 hour, already poisoned with a layer of carbon dioxide so thick it would give you dancing light streaks across your eyes to breathe it plainly. 2 suits with full tanks on each, but mine was damaged in the explosion and the oxygen wires got too pinched, so when I put it on, I began convulsing, my body impulsively searching, gasping for air, and so she gave me some of hers. My retinas bloodshot, my throat dry, on the verge of vomiting, we stared into each other's eyes. We were never lovers, and never true family until in this moment we were both. We said nothing. Speaking would deplete the oxygen too quickly, but we knew, and I tried to tell her with my eyes, thank you. Thank you for staying with me. Thank you for these last 2 hours of companionship. Thank you for dying with me. I could not ask for a better human to face this next adventure with. A tear rolled down my parched cheek. I tried to raise my arm to touch her, but my body was too weak. In our final moments, I tried to send my love to every unsung hero whose names were never written in books or given statues, whose memories fade into the black night of truths never known, even to those whose lives they spared and saved forever, for even a few moments more. She felt my soul, my longing, and pulled me to her, a resting hug, conjoined twins cupped in the womb of mortality, searching for a comfortable place, struggling more and more with each ragged breath, preparing to face the void together. The final truth plain in my mind, not everyone dies alone. Sweet. And this is the last one. It's super short.
Thank you. All right.
One more? Okay, cool. This one's just called I Woke. The clearest dream I've had in months, that I was marching through the streets of my childhood neighborhood, Winding Brook, in South Bend, Indiana, and I was marching by myself to support Black Lives Matter. I had my fist in the air and I was screaming. It was midday. I looked at my feet. I wasn't walking. I noticed. I was being carried. I was being softly lifted and propelled forward by God. That's it.
Wow. Thank you. Gabriel, where physically are you? Where is this body coming to us from?
Oh, I am in Simpsonville, South Carolina right now.
Simpsonville, South Carolina.
Yeah.
Wow. How's Simpsonville? Oh my goodness. So many
Simpsonville is very southern. But I went to 2 Juneteenth celebrations today that were great. I only had one person yell "All Lives Matter" at me, so it's been a good day.
All right.
Yeah.
Take it for what you can. Thank you so much for being here with us. I'm so happy that you found our little reading, and that because of global pandemics and technology, we're able to share space together.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you for having me.
Super special. Thank you, Gabriel. Um, I'd love to see Judy. Are you back with us? I know that you got kicked off for a little bit. Judy's an incredible photographer and has some really beautiful photos.
Yes, hi, Brian. I'm back. Unfortunately, I've been kicked off 3 times already in the last 40 minutes. So, yeah, if I could go ahead and do this, that would be great because it could happen.
Yeah, please.
In minutes. Just get the photos going here. Well, let's see. Perhaps in this, perhaps in this, with the problems with the technology, I had my screen ready, but let's try this again.
No worries. I know how that is. I appreciate you being here.
Well, it looks like they're out
Oh yeah.
of order. But we'll just try, we'll just, go through it anyway. Okay, so this is West Hollywood. This is 2008, November 5th. So if people remember November 4th, that was the day that Obama was elected in his first term for President of the United States. I was on a plane when that was announced. And, of course, everyone clapped. By the time I got home, arrived at LAX, got home, there was this cloud, in California because Proposition 8 passed. So the next night, the streets of West Hollywood were pretty busy, and actually for several nights after that, Silver Lake and also other areas. And this is a photo from that first night of November 5th, the first night of protests to protest the passage of Proposition 8. Let's see what photo comes up next.
It's a choose your own adventure.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll just go here. And this is actually, this was actually a little bit earlier. That was fall 2008. This is the summer of 2008. And this was the first Latino Pride Family Day in the East LA Civic Center Park. It was filled with a lot of family, kids, allies, but of course, mainly Latino queers and friends. And so you can see here, there's a moment of playing musical chairs. They also played what's a potato sack game, a lot of picnic type of games. So that is, a typical picnic, and it was Pride, and it was a lot of fun. So this is Amina Cruz. This is one of my social distancing photographs. I actually took this with the point and shoot camera, and Amina Cruz is an amazing photographer, and I've been social distancing because I'm high risk of catching the virus. So Amina is one of my friends who's been major support in bringing me groceries and helping me with things while I'm quarantining right now. I'm over 90 days quarantining. So she has come by in this trip to drop off some groceries, and without friends like hers, I don't know what I would do. It's just been really amazing. So this is another friend, Seal Sanchez, who is well known in the queer dyke and probably just punk community in general in LA. Back in the day, she used to be a roadie for the Bags, for the Go-Go's. She also was helping me out for a little while with groceries and different things that I needed. And she paid a visit, dropping some things off here with the bunny ears. It was Easter season, wearing the t-shirt of one of my favorite bands, Susie and the Banshees. So here she is. And I have a whole series of photographs of friends dropping things off, and a couple of them taking items that I'm getting rid of. But I'm just getting so much help from my community, which I really appreciate. So let's see now. It's not letting me go to the next photograph. Let me just pick it out here. Okay, so this is a group of friends at Dagoth And so Day Goth is a monthly club. Well, it's on hiatus now, obviously, but it's a club at Akbar in Silver Lake, and it happens the second Sunday of every month. And it's for those who want to go to a club and have fun and dance to not just goth music, primarily goth music, but also dream pop, some industrial, some alternative music. But the thing about it is that you don't have to get dressed up as goth or any certain, you can just, there's Akbar regulars that show up that, aren't necessarily goth or don't know what goth is, but they learn what it is when they show up. But it's, there's allies that show up, but it's primarily a queer goth scene, and it's lots of fun. I wanted to show the more social side of the community as well. Because I think that's, obviously very important to our well-being, our mental health, community. And so let's see if I can show the last one here. And this is one of my favorite bands. This is Zena Zerner. And this is an art and life partnership between Marvin Escora on the left and Young June Kwok on the right. And their music is, well, it's performance, plus it's experimental, it's noise, it's punk, it's synth. And they perform quite a bit at kind of that, outsider punk underground and art institution events. So they're really fantastic. They're one of my favorite bands in the city. And this was taken at an event at the Zebulon in January, which was called Disgender Euphoria, hosted by the ICA, the Institute for Contemporary Art, and Nyland Blake, who's a well-known artist, and other performance artists in LA were also performing. Now Bustamante, Marcus Colonizario, Sarah Johnson, Liz Miller Kovacs, and it was really a fun night. So I think I've passed my 3-minute allotment, but I just wanted to show quickly some photographs of some, community protests, events, nightlife, and what's going on with me with the social distancing.
Thank you so much, Judy. It's great to see that spectrum from activism to revelry to now, and masks and windows.
It all went perfectly until okay.
Judy, where can we go to see more of your photo work?
Okay, well, I have 2 Instagram accounts. One is my photography only, and it's just a bit of what I've taken, but that would be, I actually go when I'm exhibiting, which really I just started exhibiting last year, by Judy Ornelas Cisneros. So my Instagram is Ornelas _Cisneros. That's ORNELAS _SISNEROS. And then I also run the queer _LA Instagram, which is, a lot of people think it's an organization, but it's basically just me, and it's a bulletin board. It's kind of my bulletin board, and I post things that I want to. I'm not making any money. I've been approached by organizations, say we can do this and that, but it's just kind of my personal bulletin board on what I'm interested in, firstly, and then what I think other people would be interested in. I have a lot of friends that are culture creators and bands and artists and activists, and so I do insert some of my photos in some of those from some of those events, and also just announcements of things that other people are doing, and I think some people may find that interesting.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Judy. That's such an incredible resource to just get to know you, to know the person behind that. And I hope that those of us who are in LA will reach out to you and DM you and let you know all the gay stuff.
Well, no, it's not supposed to be all the gay stuff, because I'm not the center, and I'm not the city of West Hollywood, and I'm not the Blade, but it's basically, I will say, it is biased towards the things that I like, things that friends of mine are doing. And then also, just think maybe I don't know someone, but it's just, again, things I might be interested in. And I can't catch everything, but I try to post as much as I can.
Of course. Well, hopefully we won't bother you too much, but I hope that the folks who are on this call do bother you just a little bit.
No, I would love to hear from people. Don't get me wrong, I would love to.
Thank you so much, Judy. Really appreciate it. Great to have you here with us. I'd love to welcome now, and please correct pronunciation, Jure Dang, and I'm so excited to get to see you and to meet you after going back and forth on email.
Hi, I'm Jaira, and I'm a current rising junior at Cal State Long Beach, and I first met Brian, I believe, at Spoken Lit's alumni showcase, and then I connected with him on Instagram, and then I heard about this opportunity to share poetry, so I'm really excited to share my poem. All right, so this one's called Quarantine Sermon, and it is after Hanif Willis Abdurraqib. It is 10:40 a.m. I stare up at the ceiling, a collection of imprints. I am trying to count how many animals I can see. My mom asks me again, and this time I let her know. I don't want to hear my father espousing some spiritual truths using some story out of our home chaos as a metaphor for better living. So she quietly takes the iPad away, puts it in the study where I can still hear it faintly murmuring, and I think she doesn't turn it off on the chance Dad checks Zoom mid-sermon in between Mandarin translations of his words. We will still show up as a black square, muted. I sit cross-legged on a pillow at the knee-high Japanese table older than me, cracked plastic exposing the colorful peacock beneath. I take out my crafts bag, sorting my beads and judging what combination would dangle best as Dana sings a psalm and the rhythm and syllables line up just right. Like David knew we would try to make them songs again in another language. Dana preaches about being joyful, the dangers of social media, and how God helps us to love our parents. I never look up at my mom, and I know I shouldn't be so hateful, but Jesus, it was only 3 nights ago she was screaming about killing herself and everyone in our family. That we were each doing what was right in our own minds, and nobody could save this household. And for the first time in the past 2 months, I fell asleep that night remembering how anger would cloak me before my blankets would, and how I would wake up in the morning choking on the unexplained shouting in the room next door. I am 11 again, standing in front of the bathroom mirror wondering why God made me this way, why sin had planted a seed in my heart and all I could ever do, it seemed, was to stray away. Last night, I was meaning to work out on the bike, but fell asleep on the couch instead and dreamed of her brown hair and honey syrup eyes. And I dreamed I kissed her. I was on a cloud. I woke up 5:45 a.m. disappointed, panicked my contacts were still in my eyes, trying to recreate the feeling in watching movie scenes, but it only made me feel more sad, feeling more alone, knowing that on my birthday 2 weeks ago, Popo called me from Vancouver, her nose bridge and 2 eyes peeking from off screen. She tells me Gong Gong cried when he saw my tattoo and septum piercing, that he prays for me every morning, a way of saying, we love you, but we worry about you. An echo of my parents saying, you aren't the same happy girl we used to know. A reproaching of, we didn't come for America for you to be like this. My mom still tells me the story when she was 16, a parachute kid from Hong Kong trying to buy a house in Burnaby, Canada with her family savings. My dad never talks about middle school when he, his father's only son, shed the shell of his last name Chen to fit his uncle's adoption papers. Dang. My dad tells me instead he is more Christian than Chinese, meaning God followed him across the Pacific from Taiwan to California, even when his parents didn't. But how is one supposed to apologize for wanting to be yourself, or wanting to find yourself, or wanting to feel like you are not the sole reason for all the things gone bad in the world? Somewhere, 20 years ago, on May 11th, a girl was born and her father was playing Canon in D that morning because he heard on the public radio, classical music made your kids smarter. She was tucked in pink blankets. Her parents held her and were quiet, appraising this small wonder, naming her after the God who provides. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, it's amazing to get to hear your work, and to get to see you, and yeah, more of this, much more of this. Thank you. Up next, Typewriter Troubadour. Are you here? Jeremy Brownlow. Let's see. We've got Jeremy on deck, but for now, since I see you in the chat, Jason, are you ready to read?
Yes, I can read. Can you hear me?
We got you loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. And in honor of the Pride Poets and for Juneteenth today, I wrote something new. So here we go. Hostages of human history we are, witness to the myriad of scars that mar our collective body, new ones added every day to a pattern of dismay, torture and torment in a landscape of pain. Oh, and such is the chorus of cries that echoes in our ears, someone, some many, somewhere, everywhere. The recognition of a distinction is often unclear. We drown in an ocean of such a dreadful din, a rhythm section composed of clanging shackles and chains, staccato gunfire accompanied by the fanfare of explosions as we bite and fight our way through the years. The taste too often on our tongues, bitter blood and salty tears, haunted by the past hunting for the future still standing, perhaps stronger than ever, fortified by so-called progress, propped up as we are on the shoulders of our ancestors, who are so eager to see us succeed lest their sacrifice was in vain. Might we be the generation to figure out the equation that has so far been privy to individuals yet eluded the masses? The tests of time continually present themselves, history repeated again and again as it always is. New form, new look, same difference. It takes more than thoughts and prayers to answer the long list of life's existential questions. Keep your wits about you, or we'll all lose our heads. May every blaze and every riot pave the way closer to our freedom. Some would say, don't get caught up in all of that. Oh, but it's time more people did. The movement of this moment needs your momentum. Be swept away or be swept under by rulers who would rather render us asunder, keeping us separate and silent, complicit in our complacency, overwhelmed and confused by the ever-growing complexity, when the reality is simple. It's merely a matter of common sense and compassion for all our earthly companions. Can the hearts and minds unite as well as all the nations? Read up, wise up, rise up. There's a future that needs us. And if we're lucky, no, if we're lucrative in our learning and lucky, we will discover what it feels like to truly be free. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Jason. It was so great to meet you last year during Pride, writing next to you, exclaiming queer poetry on a bullhorn in a silver cape.
Yes, you're so welcome. And I have a typewriter for you. So I just got a gift of a typewriter that will be yours.
Oh my goodness. Do you know what kind? Natalie says, the Cape guy. I remember you.
Yes.
You're the Cape guy officially.
Yes. I remember you too as well.
Do you know the make of your typewriter, Jason?
I think it's a Smith Corona. I'm not sure.
Oh, those are good. Those are workhorses.
There's other ones. Too. Corona?
Oh.
Smith Coronavirus.
Thank you so much, Jason. It's great to hear your work and see you always. I'd love to welcome Kendall up next. From the poetry brothel and many other sordid places. I'm so excited to have you with us, Kendall. Thank
you so much for inviting me, Brian. It means the world to me. I loved getting to know you under the pen name Sodomy Gulch. I knew right away that this was not over us working together. It was simply written in the stars. I'm going to share with you guys some of my newer and less known works. They're short. So the first one is called Aphelion Unboxed. I lie in boxes, scattered and tattered about the house in stacks and piles, forlorn in drawers that squeak and creak in obscene obsolescence, bloated and remote in a cemetery plot. I lie in boxes, calcified, classified, taxonomized and organized with the cumbersome clash of imposed and improvised layers of processes and personalities. I lie in boxes, labeled, sealed, compartmentalized, an oozing sore of memory and secrecy by necessity in a society still terrified of the uncanny. I lie in boxes, piecemeal, rotting, irrelevant. I lie in boxes, objectified, sterilized, in ephemeral plasticity. Still, I transcended those posthumous confines and ghastly pantomime, a mimesis of me, amorphous in minds, in size and size. I was raised. Now I rise. Now I have a new one. I just wrote it like, actually I was raised with a Z, thought I would tell you for whoever commented. Anyway, here's my newest one that I just wrote like 15 minutes before we started. Origami. The story unfolds itself. Reverse origami, creases revealing how I was made and unmade. The petrified labyrinth that was my spine folds inward habitually, where I was creased and crumpled in fear. The rusted knee that will not bend, at least not where the fold intends, will show you where my handler threw me in a pit just after my form was finished. You will find no words where you peel back my posture, tracing storylines and punctuations that Braca's brain declines to summarize. You'll learn to read in older tongues the saga of my body-mind. The map has no key, where I myself can't decipher my own tangled narratives, jumbled hieroglyphs on vandalized walls, obscured by territorial graffiti. Brian was here, Jew, dyke, where once there were supple, willing joy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kendall. Oh my goodness. That wordplay, it always gets me every single time. For all of y'all, I mean, I should have said this at the beginning, but I'll say it now. Please DM each other and get to know each other and leave your handles and websites and wine glasses in the chat so that we can all continue to follow each other's work and support each other and bring each other's novels to New York, and raise each other up as a community. And speaking of a community, we are one poet away from our feature from Jaden Fields. But I'm so excited first to bring in a dear friend of mine, this shirtless gentleman in the hat. Please welcome Jeremy Brownlow, aka Typewriter Troubadour, a poet, a nomad, a healer, etc.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Brian. Yeah, I thought, given like Pride poets, I would go shirtless to reveal my scars, which I don't know if you can really see, but yeah, I am proud of my chest as a trans man, and yeah, it's a pleasure to be part of a showcase of so many beautiful queer voices out there. So my main writing avenue is doing custom poetry on demand as Typewriter Troubadour. And recently, given the events, I have signed on with Poets for Peace, where we are writing poems about socially active topics for those who donate to a organization that supports Black lives, a Black-owned business, a bail fund in their area. So I wanted to read one that was requested here in San Diego, and the funds were donated to the ACLU. So this one is called 7 Seas of Solidarity. We cannot erase history, but we can navigate new seas of solidarity. Freedom flows in rivers leading us back to the whole, where waves of justice wash upon each and every soul. Let all of us awaken to the untold stories of our neighbors, stand hand in hand with our fellow women and men, break down the binary that keeps us confined, construct new protocols that keep us all aligned. For we are all children of the divine, called to the trenches of this time to speak out and act against the powers that be. So one day the world will only know peace and unity. So that is the first one that I wanted to read. And then the other poems I would like to share are from my newest book of Typewriter Troubadour poems anthologies called Poetry Saves Lives, which is an interactive poetry book where all of the poems are curated about like self-reflection and healing and, personal growth and, just so we can all be better humans to ourselves, to each other, and to the planet. So it's interactive in the way where people can write in response to the poem or the prompt, or even write their own poem. So the first one that I wanted to read is called Archer. And I think that this is an important poem right now, especially because we all are like here focusing on like, what do we want the world to be in the future? Like, how can we create the future that serves everyone? So goes like this. Archer. Sharpen your arrow and focus on your intentions, the bullseye of your desire. Let inspiration fly forward where together we are destined to make our mark. All right. So.
And was that, Jeremy, was that one that was written for someone who had requested a topic?
Yeah, so every poem from this book, Poetry Saves Lives, was a poem that was created on a topic that was, I don't know if you guys can hear the bass bumping. I live in my van. I don't know if you can tell, but yeah, like it's popping here in Ocean Beach down in San Diego. So pardon the distractions, but yeah, so every poem that was written in this book was requested somewhere out there in my travels, based on a topic. And yeah, that one was, like sometimes when I read from my books, I like to have people like shout out a number, and then that like decides what page I read. So that one was like requested by a friend of mine earlier. And I think it's like pertinent to today's situation. So while like, if anyone wants to shout out a number for the next poem, that would be awesome.
And I'll just say you can unmute or do that in chat. We have so many options. Oh, we have Gabriel says 7. We also have 17. So something with a 7 in it.
Very interesting, because that poem that I just read, the Archer poem, was number 17. So this just like makes it seem like we are all aligned. All right.
And then Natalie says
on page 69.
Natalie says 69 because she's very mature.
And okay, let's see. Oh, okay. How interesting. So this one is called Release. The bats fly from the mascara-clad eyes, tears of glory streaming down my face in victory, the throb in my chest broken and pumping back to life through sorrow. We have been taught not to release our demons, instead to swallow them, feed them anger, hoping whiskey will kill them eventually, sterilizing the pain from the needles, the obnoxious pokes of society's burden, forgetting we do not have the power to set ourselves free simply by feeling what sets out to destroy our insides now. So that was written a long time ago when I was a lot more like angry, I guess. But that was written in 2015. And then, for example, the way that this book is like laid out is underneath the poem Release, there's some space for people to write down, based on the prompt, healthy ways to release, process, or feel my emotions, you know, because I know for myself, I have not done that in healthy ways all the time, but poetry certainly is like a medium to get all that junk out of your soul, you know. And I think like if all of us do that in some way, whatever way that is, we're going to be able to be stronger, to serve society and heal society.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you so much for being here and sharing with us. And it's so great to have you from San Diego.
Yeah.
Soul junk, says Natalie, as always.
Thanks, Brian.
I just want to shout out your hustle and yay the merch. If you have merch, put it in the chat. If you have books, please support each other, help each other out. And also the call for poetry as a way of healing, and the call for poetry is something to be responsive. Yeah, all of that. Oh my goodness. Well, we are at that time, my friends. We are at our featured reader. We're gonna hear from Jaden Fields. Gonna give him the stage for the next 10 minutes, and then after that, I invite everybody. We're gonna stop the live stream. So that's going to be the end of the show for people on the outside. But for us in here, it is just the beginning, or just the, half hour until end. It's a chance for us to get to talk to each other a little bit, to build community, and also to have poems written by the Pride Poets. So I hope that everyone can stick around for that. And if you are watching on the live stream and want to hop in, this is a great time, but I am going to hand things over now to Jaden Fields, and thanks so much for being here with us.
Hey, everyone. First, I want to show off my shirt. It says Very Black. Happy Juneteenth. So my name is Jaden. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a poet and a community organizer based in Long Beach. I do a lot of work around LA. I'm going to share 3 poems. The first one, Long Beach. As a Black trans masculine person, I definitely had a Black girlhood, and that definitely informs the kind of masculine person that I am. So this first poem I wrote when I started to understand what it meant to move through the world as a Black masculine person. And it was inspired by a conversation that I had with my cousin, who was a cis Black het male. I do want to give a trigger warning for homophobic language, transphobic language, racialized language, conversations about sexual violence and police brutality. So this first poem is called Thoughts on Becoming a Black Man So Far. 1. When I told him of my journey through gender, he warned, "Don't be a faggot ass nigga, fam." What he meant was, there ain't no space for soft in your manhood. Don't let all that magic hinge in the sway of your hips. Hollow out the holy femme of you, a divine womb death, a bloodletting of all of the woman in you. They took everything from us, made sport of our burning bodies. Be hard. Be stone in all your blackness. Take refuge in the deep thick of your melanin. Maybe you will bleed less when they try to kill you, because they will try to kill you. 2. Fear used to be hot combs and relaxers, burnt ear tips on school picture day, when combs became weapons in mothers' hands, the unkinking of unruly coils, the quest for a more tameable beauty, uncrossed ankles in the skirt, the curves of this body as invitation. Too many men with too many wandering hands. Every man I'd have the audacity to ignore on the walk home. Childhood lessons like blackened knees and learning how to swallow now. Fear is sirens and handcuffs and badges and guns and white folks who miss lynching as pastime and righteous defenders of bathrooms. And is my voice too high? And what gender do they see right now? And are there enough people around just in case? And is my music too loud? As if they could atrophy the boom cap brilliance of my blackness. And if they see me in a tie, will they know I'm one of the good ones? And almost believing that goodness means survival, and worth placed on bodies based on genitals and melanin. Pussy is proof of woman and therefore invitation, and black is proof of threat, of brute, of breakable, of nigga, of something less than human, of the kinds of bodies branches beg for the weight of the kinds of lives that aren't supposed to matter. 3. Every day that I wake up, black and trans and breathing is a miracle. Thank you. So that was my first poem. Thank you so much. The next poem, moving through the world as a queer, black, masculine person, and really recognizing the ways that black cis folks aren't showing up for black trans folks. This is after I was called a faggot ass nigger by a black man. So this is called after he called me a faggot ass nigger, or the cognitive dissonance of niggas. There are days when they have no idea who or what I am. Can only feel all the things I am not hard, not vacant, not man enough. The gender they are always looking for when they see me. In these moments, nigga feels heavy, like the pounding fist of another nigga, like the thud of black flesh into pavement, like the ancestral dread of sirens, like your breath before the scream, my niggas. Don't you see? We are all purple gummed kings. We all know the clumsy closeness of death. I too have cried over the inconsistency of time, my niggas. Sing my gender like them old church hymns. Hum me like a trap god symphony. Honor the honey sweet switch in my walk. Love me light, like your breath upon smiling. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And then the last piece, I wrote this poem initially several years ago, and it has just evolved a lot as time has gone by. It's called America. So same trigger warnings. This is America. America. Your beautifuls are digging through I'm sorry, sorry. Okay, America. America. Your beautifuls are digging through the rubble of your greed for that dream you promised. But every fruit those illegals picked is genetically modified. You're serving a supersized apple pie swallowed down with pesticides, and then you wonder why your children are so medicated. America. Tell little Adam he can't put moon dust wishes in his pockets anymore. Tell him he can't smile so much. Tell him that every yes is a yes, and every no is a yes. Tell him to take because men are supposed to take. Tell him he can't swish and sweep so much. Tell him he can't skirt twirl or shoulder shimmy beautiful. Tell him he can't crave double chin kisses and broad shoulders. Tell him your boys don't play sissy, your boys don't play faggot. Tell him he is only and always he in this nation under God. Tell him he's only allowed down on his knees for prayer, America. Tell little Eve to dream in pink and pretty only. Tell her she can't learn spark plug and engine grease. Tell her she's fat, as if it's a bad thing. Tell her to turn her body into a symphony of blood spills. Tell her it's only good for certain things, right? Tell her that every yes is a yes, and every no is a yes. Tell her her existence means she's always invitation. Tell her to speak pretty, but only when she's spoken to. Tell her she can't bow tie sir to her shoulders. Tell her she is only and always she in this nation under God. Tell her she's only allowed down on her knees for prayer, among other things. Tell her to put her book down. Tell her words are no good to her when she's on her back in the dark. Tell her womb blooming blessings are her only future. Tell her she has no choice. America. Your beautifuls are digging through your racist fucking bullshit, America. I'm just trying to be while Black, but I can't eat while Black. I can't walk while Black. I can't run while Black. I can't sleep while Black. I'm just trying to be me while Black America, but you won't let me get free while Black America. The fact is, you're president of fucking fascist America. You claim you want to be great again, America, as if there is greatness in how you begin, America. Remember when you had a Black president, old reporter in chief, who was just another nigga, just like Emmett Till and Oscar Grant and Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown and Ayanna Jones and Tamir Rice and Breonna Taylor and Alton Sterling and Philando Castile and George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Tony McDade and Nina Pop and Sandra Bland and Remy Fells and Rhea Milton and Robert Fuller and Malcolm Harsh and Dominique Alexander and David McAtee and Freddie Gray and give them basketball dream sled and teach them how to run since you've gotten so good at hitting moving targets, right, America? Sneak into their classrooms and steal their test scores so you know how many prison beds you need to fill for the next 20 years, America. You have a complex in its prison industrial size, America. The Klan is traded in their white robes for badges and a gun so they can protect and serve the rebirth of this nation unless you're born Black or brown or woman or queer or trans, because God hates fags, right, America? We are one nation under God, only divisible by Democrat and Republican, by man or female or human or Black or saint or sinner. America, you want to keep prayer in your schools? Then get down on your knees and spread your lips towards the sky, our Father, who art on Capitol Hill, who refuses to come down and put change into the cups of his homeless veterans, America. Remember when you shipped little Adam and little Eve off to war to fight in the name of democracy, to fight in the name of what you claim means to be American America? You forget that only the dead survive America. Little Adam and little Eve came back to your street corners with outstretched hands and an explosion of nightmares behind their eyelids, and you walk right by them while proclaiming your support of our troops. And you go home and hug the dog tags and flag that came back instead of your child, America. If you're tired of people dying in the name of fabric, America, I pledge allegiance to the flag. Fabric fits with the very blood of me, America. The myopia is deep here, America. The evil is strategic here, America. Your beautifuls are still digging. Where the fuck is that dream? Thank you. Just want to shout out, I have these pocket guides that I made. It's a self-love pocket guide. You just fill it out with the kind of things that you do to offer your self-love. And then my chapbook, Intentional Musings on Staying Alive When I Want to Die. A reflection on how systemic oppression shows up in mental health. So thank you so much, y'all. Really appreciate having the opportunity to share my work with you all. Yeah, happy Juneteenth to the Black people. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Jaden. And you're based in Long Beach?
I'm based in Long Beach. You follow me on Instagram, the Dapper Mr. Jaden. Down to connect with folks. Yay.
And is that Mr. spelled out, or is that just MR?
Mr. MR.
MR. Okay, cool. I put it in chat. Let me know if I got it right, and would love to have you share your work and where to find it and links and all that stuff in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let us know anywhere you're reading, ways we can continue to support your work.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here. All right. It is that time of the evening, my friends. I am going to go ahead and open up these breakout rooms. Just a reminder for as to what they're for, I suppose. These are spaces to hang out, to chat with each other, to have a poem written by our Pride poets, based on what you've said already, based on whatever you tell them. Spaces to connect with one another about your projects, spaces to, I don't know, say what bands you like, whatever it is. I know that I'm missing community space a lot, and so I hope that this can be some sort of weird cyber substitute for that. With that being said, for folks entering these breakout rooms, we've got 2 people per room with our poets. The poets will ask you super basic question, what do you need a poem about right now? It can be silly. You can say my cat. You can say, I need a poem about a bowl of cornflakes. You can say I need a poem about ending oppression. You can say I need a poem about whatever you need a poem about. And they will do their best to write for you, and Catherine's cat will help her. And it's just, I want to say before we stop the live video, it's been so great to be here with you all. It's been an exhausting week for many, I'm sure, and so it means the world that folks have showed up here. So I'm going to go ahead and open those rooms, accept those invitations, and we will see you all hopefully at the next one. But for now, enjoy having your poems written, and we'll talk to you soon. I'm going to go ahead and open the rooms. The rooms are open, and I'm going to stop the live video. If folks on the live want to jump in and have a poem written, you're welcome to come in, and I will put you in a live room. Otherwise, everyone's in their rooms, and I wish you all the best. Have a